He says, kun fayakunu. Be, and it is. So there's no, God is not interacting in his creation in a cause and effectual way, in that way, that things are interacting with other things in a cause and effect way.
That this universe has been created by a powerful and intelligent being who is transcendent. By that I mean that God is not like anything in the universe. And the Quranic concept of God does not compromise that in any way by, for example, claiming that some creature, such as a human being, shares the power, the knowledge, or the attributes of God. And that would be a self-contradictory statement. If you think about it, if you're claiming that a created being has any of the power of the knowledge of the ability of God, then the whole basis upon which you build an argument for the existence of God in the first place, it falls down. It demolishes itself.
You see, the Vedanta is a philosophy based on the Upanishads.
Spoken about frequently to refer to the Upanishads, although later it also started including other works as well. But typically Vedanta is the Upanishads, which are seen as the essence of the Vedas. So you don't have time to study all the Vedas. Okay, study the Upanishads. From the Upanishads has come this teaching of Vedanta.
And depending upon the interpretation of the Upanishads, we have many schools of Vedanta. The Upanishads have been interpreted in different ways, giving rise to different philosophies, and the text which is central to these philosophies is what is called the Brahma Sutras, the aphorisms which deal with the philosophical aspects of the Upanishads. Now these Brahma Sutras, different philosophers, different spiritual masters have commented upon them, given explanations which are very different from each other. So there is the non-dualistic explanation of the Brahma Sutras, giving rise to the non-dual school of Vedanta, the Advaita Vedanta. Most famously, the philosopher here is known as is Shankaracharya, who is the most famous philosopher of this school. But then there came Ramanujacharya, who gave a different explanation of the same Brahma Sutras and commentaries on the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita, and that gave rise to the school of Vishishtadvaita, the qualified non-dualistic school. Then came Madhvacharya, another great philosopher and spiritual master, who gave a dualistic interpretation to the same Brahma Sutras and the Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita, and that gave rise to the school of dualism, Dvaita Vedanta. So already we have Advaita Vedanta, Vishishtadvaita Vedanta and Dvaita Vedanta. What are the differences between them? Well, to put it in brief, Advaita Vedanta says there is one existence consciousness bliss, and all that we are experiencing is that same existence consciousness bliss. We are not aware of what it is in reality, and hence we superimpose a world of multiplicity, plurality. So the plurality, the multiplicity we see in this world, different people, different kinds of things, even God, all of these are ultimately, in reality, one existence consciousness bliss. And this has to be realized. And once we realize this, we get out of the bondage of suffering, bondage of rebirth. So this is the idea behind non-dualistic Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta.
Oneness. So there is no two, because people had always been talking about me and God, worshipping God as separate from the self. So Sri Shankaracharya came in and said, no, there is one. nothing but God. And it's important to distinguish that. We're not talking just about one God. So it's not that we've gone from many gods to one God. It's we've gone from a concept of God as something to which I pray to a concept of nothing but God. So there is no distinction between the devotee and the object of devotion. And in traditional Advaita, any sense of distinction is an illusion. So we speak and hear frequently about the concept of the wave in the ocean. The wave is ultimately the ocean. But in the Advaita teaching, they would say the wave itself is an illusion. The fact that it looks different than the ocean is illusory. Not just that it's a temporary form, but actually it is an illusion. That's Maya. There is nothing but God. This divine presence has no attributes, all attributes, no form, no names, nothing. It is just the nameless, formless, attributeless existence.
In Vishishtadvaita Vedanta, the idea is that divinity is one whole, a composite whole of which we are all parts. It's not that there is only one homogeneous, non-differentiated existence consciousness bliss, but that this existence consciousness bliss, which they call Narayana or Vishnu, is the divinity of which we, all living beings, and this insentient world, we are all parts. The sentient beings are called Chit Amsha, the sentient part, and the insentient beings, that means all the matter and energy we see around us, is called Achit Amsha, the insentient part. And Brahman is Chit, Achit, Vishishta, Brahma. That means Brahman qualified by its sentient parts and its insentient parts. So there is one whole of which we are a part. And spirituality would consist of realizing that we are part of one divine whole, which is an organic unity. The role of devotion, bhakti, is stressed over that of jnana in this interpretation of Vedanta.
Same concept. We're still in the oneness of God. But Vashisht literally means unique. So it's oneness with unique qualities. So he took the teaching of Advaita and said, yes, there's nothing but God, but that God is not entirely attributeless. Rather, there are attributes of God. So there are waves on the ocean. The wave is the ocean. The wave is not separate from the ocean. It would be ludicrous for the wave to worship the ocean because the wave is ocean. And yet, the wave is an attribute of the ocean. So that's the Vishishtadvaita teaching, is oneness, nothing but God, but with attributes, with unique characteristics that are manifest in the myriad aspects of creation. Yes, we're all God, but we're embodying different attributes, all of which are of the same God. And the analogy that he gave is that in the same way that the soul is to the body, so is the infinite to the finite. So is God to us. So the body is nothing without the soul. Right? I mean, if we didn't have a soul, we'd no longer leave a body on the ground without a soul, and within a few minutes, hours, and days, it starts to be no longer a body. So in the same way that the body depends on the soul for its existence, so does the finite depend on the infinite. So does the wave depend on the ocean. If there were no ocean, there could no longer be a wave. So that's Ramanujacharya's Vasishtadvaita. Ramanujacharyaji had emphasized bhakti, devotion. So through devotion, we would come to understand the divine, not separate from us, of which we are an attribute. But I would discover that through devotion to God.
Then again you have the dualistic Vedanta, where the philosopher asks you, does it seem real that we are all different from each other? When we say yes, that's what it seems like. And Madhva tells us, you are right, we are different from each other. Does it seem like God is something different from us? We say yes, God does seem something different from us. And Madhva tells us, you are right, God is different from us. This world is different from us and we are all different from each other, but we are all under the care and the love of one divine ruler, which we can call Brahman, God in English. So it's a dualistic school where we are all separate, independent entities. Again, the role of bhakti and surrender to God is important here, whereas in the non-dualistic school, the role of jnana, knowledge, is preeminent.
But it's so beautiful to love God, to worship Krishna with attributes that are different than mine. To be the lover of the beloved, and to have this thing called love between us. That's beautiful. And so the dualist path, the Dvaita path, is a path rooted in the love of God by the devotee. Many different paths within the dualist tradition. There's many different paths, different ways of loving God, which we won't go into. But it's rooted in short in the concept of the lover and the beloved as being separate. That yes, we've been created by God. God, of course, is also in me. But the God that is out there is different. And that's why I'm able to love. It's not love of myself. It's not love of my soul. It's love of a distinct divine being. The love of whom brings me that state of liberation, that state of moksha, that state of samadhi. Whatever way we use, doesn't matter. What matters is we connect. And there's people for whom the concept of a nameless, formless, attributeless, divine, supreme existence, that's all there is the easiest way and the most powerful way for them to connect to God. For others, a path of devotion, and within that, different ways of devotion. But it doesn't matter. What matters is we connect.
When you say Brahman is real, what level is it? Absolute, relative, or illusory? Which one? Brahman is real from the absolute point of view. Right? The world is a false, an appearance from the absolute point of view. I am Brahman from the absolute point of view. But if I worship God, I have a puja and a Krishna or a Christ before me. At what level am I doing it? Transactional or relative or vyavaharika level. The two levels are not the same. So worship of God at the vyavaharika level does not contradict the absoluteness of Brahman. Brahman is real, the world is an appearance, you are Brahman, absolutely true. Relatively, that Brahman being identified with a body and mind, worshipping God who is the Father, who is the Mother, who is Krishna, who is Christ, perfectly all right. But Advaita Vedanta speaks about the absolute. So from the absolute point of view, we should not at all speak about worshipping of God. You should only keep on speaking about Brahman being real and the world being an appearance and you are Brahman. Am I really separate from God and am I really one with God? Contradictory. Obviously, logically contradictory. But am I really one with God and I appear to be separate? Fine, there's no problem with it. You know, when two persons worship God and one says, I'm a non-dualist, and the other one says, I'm a dualist. You know what's the difference? The difference is philosophical. The dualist says, here I am worshipping my Lord, he is my father or she is my mother, and I am the child, and we are different. And this is where I stop. That is dualism. I love my Lord, I depend on my Lord, and I surrender to my Lord. What about being one with your Lord? Impossible, because I am not one with my Lord. That is real dualism. Now, when the so-called non-dualist worships God, he says, here I am. I appear as body and mind, as this individual being, as a human being, and here is the same Brahman appearing as God, Ishvara. Nirguna Brahman, Saguna Brahman. The Absolute is Nirguna Brahman, Brahman beyond attributes. And God is Saguna Brahman, Brahman with the mask of attributes, with a name, Ramakrishna, or Krishna, or Christ, with a form. The name is illusory, Maya. The form is also Maya. If you remove the name and form, you and Ramakrishna are one Brahman. But as long as you wear that particular mask, and God will wear this mask, and then your relation is worshipper and worshipped, knowing all the time you are one reality. Our mistake is not that we experience duality, we think this is the final reality. That's our mistake. Advaita says this is not the reality. There is an underlying reality of non-duality which appears as a dual universe.
The thing is, the creation is made in such a way that creation and creator cannot be separated. Here you are a piece of creation, at the same time the source of creation is throbbing within you. If you pay little attention to this process of life, you would not need any purpose, it'll keep you engaged for 1,000,000 years if you want. There is so much happening. So much means so much unbelievable things are happening right here. If you pay enough attention, 1,000,000 years of existence, it'll keep you busy or more. Right now, the need for purpose has come because you're trapped in your psychological structure, not in your life process. Psychologically, your psychological structure functions from the limited data that it has gathered. Within that, it rolls, and right now, your thought and emotion has become far more important than your life, isn't it so? Isn't it so? So because of this, you're seeking a purpose as an escape from the trap that you have set for yourself. It is a trap set by you. You can easily come out of it. If the trap was set for you by somebody else, difficult to come out because they'll set the trap in such a way that you cannot come out, isn't it? So this is a trap set by you. This is easy to come out, but that is the whole thing. Why it is so difficult is, now you're identified with the trap, you like it. You like it because it gives you a certain sense of safety and security and protection and individual identity. If you build a cocoon around yourself, it gives you safety, but it also imprisons you. Walls of self-preservation are also walls of self-imprisonment. When it protects you, you like it. When it restricts you, you do not like it. That is why we have doors. We like the walls because it's protecting us. But we have doors so that we can open it and get out when we want to. It doesn't matter how nice it is, we still want to go out, isn't it? So that is how it is with every trap that you set. It doesn't matter how nice it is, you still want to go out. So the psychological wall that you have built, which gives you some sense of identity, which gives you some sense of being a person, an individual person, and which gives you security, beginning to experience it like a trap. Somewhere you want to break it. So one way of not breaking it is to find a purpose. Those who find a purpose in their life, they become so conceited. They will live within their own trap forever, thinking that they're doing the most fantastic thing. First thing you need is balance. If you have balance, then you can climb. If you don't have balance, it's better you stay on the ground, isn't it? It's not safe for somebody who is not balanced to climb high. It's best you stay close to the ground, you should not climb. So, first thing is to establish a balance, then you loosen your psychological structure. Then it's a wonderful thing. So, first thing is to work for balance, an enormous sense of balance, where even if you dismantle your psychological structure, you can simply live here. Dismantling your psychological structure is an important process because that is your trap, that is your security, that is your stability. At the same time, that's your trap. Because the walls are set, you feel secure, but that's also your trap. If you dismantle your trap, you also dismantle your security, isn't it? You also dismantle your sense of purpose, you also dismantle everything that matters to you. So that will need balance. Without balance, if you dismantle, you will go crazy. But don't look for a purpose, because if you look for a purpose, you're seeking madness. If you find one, you are sure mad. Yes. If you think you found a purpose in life, you for sure gone crazy. Because only the insane people have purpose. Or people who have purpose are insane in many ways. These are things that you create in your mind and believe it's true.
Knowing God, how can we know God? Through what means can we know God? Is there a means to know God? All of these questions and more. The purpose of life. Why are we here? What is it all for? What is the reason for our existence? These are, of course, all the questions that religions in various different ways try to answer. How do you explain an organized, systemized universe? The most rational conclusion is an organizer, a systemizer.
When we say khalaqa, when we say Allah is al-Khaliq, what we are saying is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created this out of nothing. Not from His own self. This is not an emanation from God. Lam yalid wa lam yulad. He did not produce anything, He did not give birth to anything, nothing came out of Him. وَلَمْ يُولَدْ, and He came out of nothing. He did not come out of anything. Allah always was. Allah was, and nothing was with Him. And He is as He was in His absolute reality. Because we are contingent. Our existence is based on Allah's existence. We are not absolute reality. This is not absolute reality, none of this. It's contingent on that Allah has made it out of nothing, and at the moment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides, He can again return it to nothing, as it was. We can only say what you said about yourself. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ Allahu Samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakun lahu kufuwan ahad. Our scholars say that negates the 8 ways that people fall into shirk. So those are all negative approaches to God. They negate concepts of God. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. That negates the concept that God is plural or that He's composite. Right? 1 is not a number. And this is one of Euclid's, in one of his books, I think it's book 7. He says that a unit is that thing which we call 1. That's a unit, that's a wahda. And then he said number is a multitude of units. So one is not a number. Every number is a multiple of one, but one is not a number. So when we talk about God, we're saying that he is one, and that's negating kathra and ta'addud. It negates the idea that he's composite, that he's made up of parts. So he's a simple reality. Simple, I mean by that there's no parts. It's infinite simplicity. It's pure oneness. And then Allahu Samad, that negates the haja, ihtiyaj, naqs. It negates deficiency and aib. So it negates, we can't conceive of God as needing anything or having any blemishes. He's salam, he's perfect. Salimun min al-uyub. And then lam yalid wa lam yulad, that negates illa wal ma'luliyah. It negates cause and effect. Nothing caused God, and God is not the cause of anything in a cause and effect relationship. In other words, that cause and effect cannot be separated, right? So we can't, one of the things Aristotle, his problem with God, he called him the prime mover, because he said that God is the uncaused cause of all existence. So we say that God is the cause of existence, but we say it majazan. We say it to say that he's not a cause. Do you see? I mean, these are we're getting into advanced kalam, and it's, you you really need a lot of preparation to get into into these concepts. But God says be, and it is. إنما kun fayakunu. That fa is not sababiyya. If it was sababiyya, it would be majzoom. He says kun fayakunu. Be, and it is. So there's no, God is not interacting in his creation in a cause and effectual way, in that way, that things are interacting with other things in a cause and effect way. Al-'ilm al-ma'luliyah. And then وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ يَنْفِي الشَّبَهُ وَالنَّظِيرُ. That he could have shabihun or nadir, that he has a likeness or an opposite. So the devil, if you get into Ahura Mazda, Ahriman and Ahura Mazda in dualistic thinking, the devil is seen as a nadir of God. That there's a dark God and a light God. That's a dualistic Manichaean thinking. That's negated by that. So the Qul Huwa Allahu Ahad is the via negativa of our tradition. It is yaslibu anwa' al-kufr al-thamaniya. It negates those 8 types of kufr. And that's why whoever really understands ikhlas understands tawheed, at least at that level. Does that help?